Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Talking to Introverts podcast. And you might have noticed in our last episode we had our first ever guest with us. Well, we've got another one today, and I feel like this guest has been with us throughout most of the episodes of our podcast already, in spirit, if not in person. So I kind of feel like, Denise, you need to, who have we got with us today, Denise?
Yes, so as Sami has indicated, there has always been a third wheel in this podcast, and that is hashtag my friend Sarah. And as Sarah is in the country, in the UK, we thought we'd take full advantage of that and invite her on as a guest. Good morning, my friend Sarah.
Good morning, Denise, and good morning, Sami. Very nice to meet you. I'm so excited. I'm having to rein it in amongst you introverts. They excited.
Yeah. I can vouch for that. She's actually sitting on her hands as we speak so that she sits still. Where shall we start? Sami, what questions have you got for Sarah, my friend Sarah?
Well, let's get a little bit of background first. So, Sarah, how do you and Denise know each other?
Well, in my research, in preparation for this great event, I was thinking about that, and I haven't got a specific date, but it was back in the 80s, 81 onwards, when we were both at Manchester Royal Infirmary, where I'd started my nurse training. And I heard a lot about Denise before I actually met her. And this is through friends who were peers amongst my group, who were actually working on the ward that Denise was a ward sister. And we were sharing a flat, and they'd come home and they'd talk about Denise this and Denise the other. Oh, and this was Denise, and that Denise, sister Denise did this. And I thought, I'm missing out here. Who is this Denise person that's taken up so much of their time? So I think through a social event, and you didn't live too far around the corner, I think, at that time. Were you on Lapwing Lane? And you were living with Chris, who was Peter, Chris was in our group, and I met her one evening. And then from there, we were just around. And I think it's one of those questions that's often asked these days, is where, if friends have been friends for a long time, when did that happen, and why did it happen? Why did you become friends? So that's been in my thoughts since Denise invited me along, really. So yeah, in answer to your question, it was early 80s, which is over 40 years ago, which is really quite something. Denise is, apart from my sisters, is my oldest friend. So that's really good to be in each other's lives all that time. So I'll hand over to Denise then, see what she recalls about meeting me.
Actually, I'm sitting here dreading what you're going to say next. Because before the days of social media, of course, our lives weren't out there, were they? We just got on with them. And it's like, yeah. Oh, what is she going to say? Of course, I have to think about that. I don't actually remember our first meeting per se, because like you said, we mixed in circles, didn't we? Eventually they came together. So, but I do remember where I was living, and we just had joint friends. And It was interesting because I think more through working than anything, this group expanded. And there was quite a few of us at one point. We actually, before everyone went in different directions from Manchester to pursue their careers, we we had some jolly times, didn't we? I'm leaving it at that, Sarah. I'm not saying any more.
We were collectively known, a group of us, as the Gin Witches. I don't know if you were aware of that, Sami.
Okay, that kind of builds on Denise's jolly times, doesn't it?
It does, yeah. So
yes.
Well, particularly around January, which was obviously Denise's birthday, but also when you were nurses, you got paid early in December and paid the last week of January, which meant it was 6 weeks from December to the end of January. So when the end of January payday came, it was a time of much celebration, and gin was around those times. So that's we gathered the name. Yeah. And then going along with that, when you asked me to join the podcast, I was thinking about, I think, remembering, and I did this morning, listen to episode 1 of your podcast series, because Denise advertised that you were doing a podcast, And then I couldn't find the link, and I messaged her to say, send me the link. But in the meantime, I found it, and I was driving to meet a friend, and I was in New Zealand at the time, and I recognised obviously Denise's voice, and I was driving along, and then she started talking about me and this, and I didn't know, I wasn't unprepared. I didn't know I was going to get attention. There was quite a lot about extroverts and who I was. And I got to the restaurant to meet my friend, and she said, all right? I said, I think so. And it was like, I've just been spoken and I wasn't aware of it. And it wasn't criticism, but wow, all these observations about me. So it made me reflect on who I was. So it was like, do I really? Yes, I do. Yeah. And it's not criticism, it's just these observations. This is me in comparison to these. And since then, I was been thinking about the terms extrovert and introvert. And I think back to when I first met Denise, and I'm sure you probably agree, we didn't know what these words weren't used, introvert and extrovert. And again, listening to your initial podcast, I think you identified that that labels weren't given. People were seen as either outgoing or party or very sociable or a little bit quieter, or those sorts of things we didn't have. When do the labels introvert and extrovert come to be? So that was a question I had for you too. When did we start labeling these people?
Well, for me, it was reading Susan Cain's book, Quiet. That was the big eye opener, and that was back in 2012. So this labeling of it's more the way we live our lives energetically. So for you, Sarah, it's more you really gain energy from being around people a lot of the time, talking and conversing, on anything. You can talk to anyone about anything. And I used to think it's because of your Irish heritage that you were like that. But actually, it's more that extroverts talk a lot. Introverts don't, and we need time on our own to recharge our batteries. You need time with other people, which always surprises me that you go off and do the work that you do, because you spend a lot of time on your own. And it's just like, I'm never quite sure what I'm going to meet at the airport when you actually come back to the UK. It's like, God, what's she going to be like? What are we going to find? How is your mental capacity right now? Because I'm just so aware now, so much more aware of the labels of introvert and extrovert. We are both of them. We're not 100% any of either of them. We just veer more towards one than the other. So yeah, only since 2012 have I known of this difference and what that difference equals. I need to spend time on my own to recharge my batteries, whereas you need time with other people to recharge your batteries. And then Sami identified that she very much needs time on her own to recharge her batteries. When did it come into being for you, Sami, about introverts?
I don't know. I was trying to think then as you were talking. I don't know when I came across the label. It's just something that's kind of somehow made its way into my brain. But I was reading something the other week, and this is going to be like a fraction of a story because I can't remember where it was or what any of that. But it was, I think the labels were introduced like long before Susan Cain's book. I think, was it Jung, somebody like that, or one of his contemporaries mentions it, talks about these people who, their energy is more internal and others are more external. But yeah, cannot remember where I read that or all the details of what it was. So, fraction of a story, but...
Yeah, it's not a new concept, is it? I think since Susan Cain wrote her book, and there are other books available, it's not just Susan Cain, but she did a lot of research. I think it took her 10 years to put her book together, while she actually on a more scientific level researched what it was like for people of these, to be called an extrovert or be called an introvert. And there are those that are like plumb in the middle. They're a good balance of both. But I know I'm much more on the introvert spectrum. I'm much more that way inclined. And Sarah, I know you're much more on the extrovert spectrum. Yeah. So But to actually label myself an introvert, I didn't do it until I read that book.
Okay. I think because listening to and listening to some of your podcasts is the fact that you can't, obviously, you're not down one path, and you swing at times. And I can remember at certain times of my growing up, I think being at college and being doing my A levels at college in Doncaster, and just wanting, sometimes because you were taking on so much information, it was new being in amongst a crowd of different people from school. You were growing up and feeling that I wanted to be quiet because it was a bit too much. It was more like we had this conversation in New Zealand before I left about HSP, highly sensitive people. And I think we all have times when we feel that we're really highly sensitive to different environments. So when I was seen to be quiet, people would notice that and ask, "Was I in a mood?" or "What's happened to you?" And I need some. As much as I enjoy people, sometimes it's okay for me to be alone and quiet with my thoughts while I just process like anybody else. I can't be on switch all the time. And I think when going back to what you mentioned earlier about some of the voluntary work I've done and the fact that I take myself into some challenging situations, but with that comes a lot of downtime, which I also equally can enjoy. I enjoy, and I've lived on my own for some time as well, and I can enjoy both of those. So I think going back to that first podcast, thinking, God, am I really like that? And I thought, not all the time. It's all right. It's just that having a label of extrovert was sort of like, it was that, yeah, I know that. Why is it bothering me that it's been sort of portrayed or spoken about? With love and kindness and no malice, but it was like, oh, that was a bit of an unexpected focus. So for an extrovert, that was oh my God.
I don't think there's been many of the episodes where you've not been mentioned, to be honest. And it's because you are the one person I can relate to as being different to me in that more extrovert way. We walk down the road and you're saying hello to everyone, and I might summon a smile, but I'm not actually going to speak because that's challenging. Whereas you don't stop. Everyone gets hello from Sarah. Or whatever it is you're going to say, and so there's that difference between us. Whereas you speak and observe, whereas I'm quiet and observe.
Yeah.
That's it, really. And as you can tell, Sami's not joining in with this because she's quietly observing.
Yeah.
It's how we are. It's what happens. And I think sometimes there's such a misconception. And like you're pointing out, Sarah, you do like to have time on your own. You need to have time on your own to process things. So it's a complete misconception to think that every extrovert wants to be talking, wants to be out there 24/7. It's just that you manage that better than someone like myself or Sami. Because we feel really overwhelmed. If I did a fraction of your peopling, I would be totally overwhelmed. You're in the country for 2 weeks and you haven't got a day to yourself. You're seeing and doing things all the time. Whereas if I was like you and I was flying somewhere for 2 weeks to visit family, I'd just visit family. I wouldn't do everything else because I just couldn't. I can't cope with it physically, emotionally. It's way too much. But
I do sleep, Sami. I'm not a 24-hour person. I'm far too old for that now. But yeah.
I was going to say, is that because you're only here for 2 weeks, just pack in as much as you can, and then, I mean, when you get back to wherever you're going back to, New Zealand or
Bougainville.
I was going to say Papua New Guinea. I was like, I don't think that's right. Will you then have downtime then? Is it kind of like, just keep go? Wow, we've got these 2 weeks and then...
I suppose it's... I just come over and there are people I'd like to see and catch up with. So 2 weeks, I can't get to do everything or see everybody, and people are aware. So there are just pockets of movement around and then getting people together. There is some one-to-one time with people, or there's a big family occasion, which would be fantastic. But I was just again thinking, sparking lots of thoughts now, is about, I don't know, I haven't done the reading that you two have done about introverts and extroverts. And I just was sitting thinking about my background, which you referred to my Irish heritage, Denise, was whether, I'm one of seven, a family of seven. So when you were growing up, is it nature or nurture? Is it part of who I am, or did I become that? To have a voice amongst five children, two adults during my upbringing. To sort of have to get attention. I don't know. I'm just sort of throwing it out there. Because your family, you had what, one of five, six, Denise, and Sami. I don't know. Were you a smaller family?
Yeah, I've got two brothers, but I think it might be a bit of both because I've seen research again, can't remember where. I'm just here with all my half stories today. Research that it's genetic. So we're born wherever we are on the introvert extrovert spectrum. And I think there is probably also a level of, like you say, one of seven and needing to find your voice and, be heard amongst all those people. So possibly both.
I think
all those people.
I know, all those people all the time.
Such an introvert thing to say. All the people.
When I was nursing them, when we had our cohorts, I think there was over 40 in the group I was with, and I do remember sitting at the back with our friend Dawn, who I'm seeing later this week, and people at the front seemed to know things. So, well, I'm at the back, but I know things, so I'm going to put my hand up. And although I was actually seen as quite, believe it or not, people are very not alarmed, but really, you, Shana, was, it was a new environment, leaving home for the first time, being part of this bigger group. But there's suddenly being confident enough to say, well, actually, I do know that answer. I'm not, my hand wasn't constantly in there. I didn't have that confidence at that stage. So being amongst nursing profession, being amongst women and being Northerners, there's a lot of voices around. So I felt that I wanted to be part of that. Did I want to be part of it? I wanted to be, I had something to say as well. So I do remember quite clearly really thinking, actually, I'm going to put my hand up. I know this answer. It's not always the front three rows of the know-it-alls, because then we label people then. But they were alls at the front. God, I hope they're not listening. And then we back, Dawn and I would be chatting. But that certain times in life, I'm just very aware of, I wasn't always like this. And people, I'm now in Bougainville, as you know, volunteering with VSA. And Denise, you asked me a couple of months ago, how are they coping with you? And it was a really good question, because obviously there's a different culture, there's a language barrier. And it did make me think about, had I been conscious about myself landing in there? And I had on so many different levels. The extrovert bit didn't enter into that. It was more about, a different coloured skin person arriving, person with different expertise, person on their own. I was the only white person there. So all those other things were factoring in. I didn't want to come in with all my seen as criticisms during my observation period, etc. But I think one of the things I said to Denise was, I seem to be making friends, but what I miss is the shared sense of humour, because of the language barrier was something I missed. So that actual conversation, it wasn't particularly having lots of people, but more a conversation that flowed a lot easier. But over time, that has got better. I now know the signs of people glazing over when there might be a humorous story which is just beyond them. But that's fine. I can, with language practice, communicate. But that's a challenge I like. It's putting me out of my comfort zone, where it's usually, walking past passerby, the conversation can be struck up. Whereas here in my new environment, it's not easy. So that is a challenge. So I'll stick myself in these situations. So yeah, I think they're coping all right. They keep messaging me, laughing at my photographs of me wearing hats and gloves and things because it's so cold over here. So yeah,
you've come here in a warm spell.
very pleasant. Yeah, it's lovely. It's really nice to have wind and to be wrapped up and not tiring. quiet people and louder people. I think that's how we used to see people, didn't we? The party, the sort of people as outgoing, she's very outgoing, or she's very quietly spoken, were terms that were labelled or given to people.
One of the things that we do talk about is how in society, as it is and has been for quite some time, is that the more outgoing an extrovert has been applauded, and how it's been more difficult for the more introverted person to stay quiet and just enjoy their life.
Yeah.
And I think sometimes that quietness is seen as lack of confidence and shyness, and they must be brought out of their shell and things like that. They don't have a shell, they're just quiet. It's nothing that needs to be enhanced. It is what it is. And there's also, we've talked about how even extrovert people can lack confidence. Extrovert people can be shy. Extrovert people can get uncomfortable in situations, whereas an introvert actually might not. Depends on the situation. And again, I think that's part of upbringing and socialization and how it's happened, where it's happened, that sort of thing. So we are many labels and many layers. And this extrovert introvert thing is just one of them. It's not a be all and end all, but if it helps someone to recognize that, oh, when I say I want time on my own, it's I want to recharge my batteries this way rather than keep going out partying and things like that. When we were walking through Chester yesterday, Sarah, I overheard there was a group walk past us, and there was mainly girls and a young guy, and one of them had said, I'm sacking it off, I'm not going. And I thought, I wonder if that's the introvert in the group, doesn't want to go to the party. And the guy's like, what do you mean you're not going? And that was all I heard. And I just, now my ears prick up at things that I hear in conversation, because one person out of a group saying, no, I'm not going, is seen as odd, because you're supposed to go out and party. That's what's expected of you. But no, actually, I'm better off if I don't.
I heard the tail end of that, because I heard the girls in that group saying, we're having a girls' night in. And he was saying, wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, we're having a girls' night in. So it's a Monday. He's obviously planning some night out, and the others just really didn't want to go. We're having a girls' night in. That's basically it. That was the other thing that, again, since that first podcast, triggered something in my brain, was to look at my friendship groups that I have, and when you sort of step back with a different lens and just realize how many people who might fit into that introvert category, and there's quite a lot of them, and I then wonder, well, why have I got so, and it just made me look on balance, why were there these people in my life? They're friends, generally from work or other groups that I'm part of, and what that gives to me. But then it's like, well, what do they get from me? But I don't know, I think I've got a balance, extrovert, introverts, but we're surprised at the number of introverts if we were to divide my friends up, there was a lot more than because it doesn't make any difference. They're people who were in my life, and it didn't matter what hat they were wearing, but it was just a little bit of reflection was quite a surprising one in that respect. So I just wondered, the question to both of you was, how do you see, is there a balance amongst your friendship groups on introverts and extroverts, and a quick little think?
Well, Denise and I were having a talk about this the other day, the other week sometime, and I was saying, like, with my friends, and I don't know if it's something to do with being an introvert. So I've got my, like, what I would say my core group of friends who I've known since nursery school, like for years and years and years. And then I've got Denise and like the groups of people that I've known, like from school, from college, from different times of my life in between, like nursery school and now, I haven't really kept in touch with. And I don't know if that's because I'm an introvert or just because, I don't keep in touch with people. I'm not a connector. Yeah, so I think that's something I was going to ask you, whether you have lots of different groups of friends, because I know my partner, who's much more extroverted than I am, just keeps in touch with pretty much everybody he's ever met. Like, he keeps in touch with. But to answer your question, I think between my group of friends from that I've known for years, I think it's probably about equal.
Right.
There's some that are definitely more introverted, and there's some that are definitely more extroverted.
Denise?
Yeah, no, just thinking about it, and I'm going to refer to Susan Cain again, and you can find her talking about this on YouTube. She believes that it's like creates a balance in life. Extroverts are attracted to introverts because you require something that we are, and vice versa. You know, if everybody was introverted, nobody would connect or contact anybody. We just wouldn't do it. Whereas if everyone was extroverted, wow, life would be noisy.
Yeah.
So it's that balance that we're looking for, and we're often, as she said, with partners. So Susan Cain identifies as introverted, which is why she did the research, and her husband is very definitely extroverted, and she just believes that it brings some sort of synchronicity into a relationship. If you're both very introverted, you'd never do anything, you wouldn't go anywhere. So the more extroverted person takes you outside more, whereas the introvert will bring the extrovert inside more. And it's not a right or a wrong. I'm always saying this. It's just that if you've ever felt a little bit weird about not wanting to be in company all the time, or knowing that when you get home from work, you've got to go and socialise, got to go and do that, it's not right or wrong. It's the way you are, and it's that once you recognise that, then you can work with it. And it makes more sense. Your whole life starts to make more sense. And it's just like, oh no, I'm just more introverted. That's all. I want time on my own, away from everything and everyone, to recharge my battery. And that's fine. And it's not about just going to bed and falling asleep. It's about daytime hours when everyone else is out there doing things. And you just need to be in here, being calm, being quiet, and recharging. So I often think that introverts are more like electric cars. We go through life quietly, and we have to be plugged in, and we take a bit longer to recharge. And extroverts are out there, massive dumper trucks going through life, full pelt, making a lot of noise, and they need to be refueled pretty quickly.
Yeah.
And that's just how I see it. And again, as I've said, it's not right or wrong. It's just acknowledging what helps you get through life. So, I will, by the end of the week, be people. Max always says, Max is my son and Sarah's his godmom, too much peopling. Once he knows when he's reached his level of peopling, can't do any more. And his wife, Kirsty, is very extrovert. And so between them, they create the balance of when they go out. And she knows if he's been at work 3 days, 4 days on the trot, he's done too much peopling and he ain't going to go out for a meal. He's just not going to do it. So she needs to allow him time to recharge, but she'll go out and do her own thing. They don't hold each other back in any way because they have this understanding of what each other needs. So yeah, I think it's when there isn't an understanding of that issues can arise in relationships. I know, Sami, you're training your partner in the introvert extrovert ways.
Yeah, and he's actually I think it was quite a new idea to him, like the whole introvert extrovert thing. But then also I think because he's been married before, he recognizes that a lot of what he saw in his previous wife is she was very much more introverted than he was, and he thought that she just didn't want to go out, to parties or whatever with him, and actually she just needed to be at home then. So yeah, it's I think it's quite a revelation to him, all of this, and he's getting quite good. Like over Christmas, there was 3 parties that his friends were doing, and it was like one a week. It was the same group of friends. I'm like, why do you need to see your friends that many times? It's the same people. So I was like, okay, I'll go to the first one and I'll go to the last one. I'm not going to the middle one. He's like, yeah, no, that's fine. Because that's a lot of people. And I'm like, I don't see my friends that often.
I'm just, again, it's food for thought, is being in the nursing profession and having, I was thinking about this morning, done very sort of progressing and doing managerial courses and leadership stuff. And you often do these personality tests, and the Myers-Briggs came to because I think that was one of the first times I was aware of the terms, because you've got the category something, and the extrovert is in there, and you're either EXPS whatever. And I was going to look it up, but part of that is people say, "Oh yeah, well I'm definitely an introvert." I knew that already because I's in there. And you end up with when you do all your testing, you end up with your 4 letters. And when you're looking at teams, and again when you were just talking, I think about teams I've been part of or teams I've managed of staff, and as a manager being aware of the person who's quiet is maybe now thinking maybe they were quite introvert. It wasn't that they were new or not confident. They just needed more time and didn't make the contribution as at team meetings, for instance, because they were perhaps processing it. And it's like, oh gosh, she was really quiet. I wonder if she's in a mood or anything. It's no, it's just more my now awareness of thinking. Amongst the other things you have to think about is that in order to support a team and bring them on, and what were their needs in order to get the best of that person to contribute in a clinical, professional way. Taking that on board. That's just
I think from what I've read about teams, if you're aware that there are some people who literally sit back and listen, extroverts will always chime in. They'll talk over each other. Their hands are up first. They have to speak. It's how they think. It's how they process their thoughts. Is everything comes out of their mouth. Whereas an introvert will sit back and listen and, like you've said, process what's being said. And it doesn't mean they don't have something to contribute. They just don't do it in an extrovert way. So you often have to invite them into the conversation and wait until their thoughts have gelled, because they're likely to look at you at first and be quiet, and you're left in this suspension of quietness, and then allow them to speak and take their time. And often in meetings, from what I can gather, I don't do them anymore. That's not how meetings work. And once people grasp that we are who we are, and this is how we think and process our thoughts and our energy, then suddenly everything can change. And as Susan Cain talks about going to do talks, and other introverts who do it as well, and the extroverts en masse as a group are hands up, me, ask me. Introverts will ask her one-on-one at the end. They won't do it in a group. And it's not because they lack confidence or they're shy. It's just how the thought process works. It's easier one-to-one than one to a group. Much easier. And I think having that as an understanding, because I know that there was one of your colleagues who was doing a presentation, and you actually said how she was too quiet. She could be more introverted. And it's just like, we can do it, but we think that we have to do presentations and be in team meetings the extrovert way, because that's what we're taught. Outgoing is in. And if you're not outgoing, there's something wrong with you. No, there isn't. There's nothing wrong with you. You're just more quiet. And you just need to pace yourself in a way that works for your energy. And be quiet. Nothing wrong with being quiet and calm, and whatever other words you want to use, and not overwhelming yourself. And I think it's that education around these labels that, while I hate labels, they do have their uses at times. And so it's that education around what works and what doesn't for an extrovert, for an introvert. And what about your family, Sarah? Would you say that any of your siblings are sort of more introverted than extrovert?
When we're together, there is my brother-in-law often comments is that he just steps away from it all. I'll leave them to it, they'll sort it out, because we're opinionated. Now, you can be opinionated as an introvert, as an extrovert. There's no way. And that does happen. We all work differently. I'd say the youngest, Jerry, is probably more of an introvert, and likes her time and her space. But when you asked to use that lens, yeah, it's not a way we'd probably usually describe my family because they're my sisters and my brother. You think, actually, yeah, well, she has more introvert tendencies, or she does like a quiet time, and a mixture, a real mixture. I'll tell you after the weekend. I'm not going to spend the weekend in the Lake District, so I'll tell you how it goes. Yeah. So I was, again, another thought. It's great, really, to think about. And I agree with you, Denise. I don't like labels, but then there is a time and a place for it because it helps understanding. Sometimes you don't have to wear that hat all the time. But I think growing up and again being in nursing, I've been in nursing as long as I've known Denise, but in different environments, is just having that awareness, that maturity as you grow up to appreciate that not everybody's going to go down this path that you have either in your group or your team or the colleagues that you're working with, that you will have this mixture of personalities as well as experience. I think I remember in nursing, she's been qualified this length and she's been qualified that length, and you would categorize people that way, when we're now a bit broader in my thinking when I meet a group of people is all these things. Is it experience? What personality are they? Are they going to be, is this the person that I'm going to catch after meetings because they'll have time to process and get their feedback? Or I know this person's going to give me instant feedback. So just having that maturity and understanding and awareness of who is actually you dealing with, whether that be in a friendship group or new people that you meet at the book club or the walking group or within the work circle. So, but I am part of many groups. It's something else you referred to in that first podcast. And yeah, a walking group, because with a walking group, I don't have to plan the route. I will follow. And sometimes in that, I am either at the front because I walk fast, but I'm on my own and I'm quite immersing myself, looking at the trees and looking at the view and listening to the birds. And other times it's just, I'd like to catch up with her, or I need to finish off a conversation with him, and we'll fall back and join in a conversation. But sometimes I just go and use it because I don't have to worry about where I'm going. Is it left turn or right turn? Because I'm just following people. And that's really, I can just get on with the walk or the total change in environment and be outside within nature and just absorb all that as well. Sometimes I think, I don't want to talk to anybody, but I want the exercise. So I'll stay at the back or stay at the front. Sometimes a bit in the middle. Does that make sense? That sort of a recharge within a lot of people as well. So, yeah.
Yeah, I think one of the things that after I've reflected on our friendship over the years, that I realised sort of differentiated us as being extrovert and introvert is that even after like a hard day's work, you were always up for going out. Whereas there were times I went out reluctantly. And I've said this on other podcasts, is that
Yeah.
I would drink far too much alcohol to keep up.
Yeah.
And actually, I'd have been better off now, knowing what I know now, going wherever I lived and just spending quiet time. But it wasn't if you weren't sociable, if you weren't outgoing, even back then, you were seen as being a bit strange.
Yeah.
But this is what we do. You have to do this. And it's like now I realise that no, I didn't. And I don't anymore. I don't carry on and like burn out in any way, shape or form anymore. No, I will make sure to look after me, and finding time for myself on my own, just in my own company, sometimes reading, sometimes not. It's just what I require so that I can be up and at 'em the next day doing whatever I need to do. And it's like dog walking. You went dog walking with Evie and Pete and you took Jess. I'm not that keen to go on a group dog walk. It's partly like, no, you all go. That's fine. I like to walk Jess on my own or with one other person. But when I see groups walking, I'm just like, oof, no, that's not okay anymore. And at one time I would have felt I should do, and I should be part of that, and I'll learn from that. But actually, all I got was just tired. It's just like, no, I'm more tired, I've recognized, because of the number of people I'm trying to listen to and engage with in that group. It's just too much for me. So now Yeah, if I'm walking, it's me and the dog or one other, and that's it. And I don't even pretend that I want to do it any other way now. That's what happens.
Yeah. No, it's interesting, is it? I think is that just perhaps a maturity thing, because I do like being out and about, but I'm just thinking about the other activities I enjoy and I miss currently being in Bougainville. Is things like going to the cinema, which is quite, I remember going years and years ago, going to the cinema on my own, and it was fine. Nobody knows whether you're with 20 people or one person. You're sitting in a row, and you could be with all those people, or you might be on your own. I remember feeling quite proud of myself to go to the cinema on my own because you could, and that was have to go with somebody. You could go and enjoy it, and I still to this day really enjoy going to cinema. I don't mind going on my own. Or cycling, yes, I can go with a group, but also I've missed getting on a bike and just having that exercise of the things I do like to do on my own. Even though you can actually be on your own with loads of people. I like going to cinema, sitting in either 300 or 3, and go and enjoy that activity. Yeah,
I think that again is something that you will go out. I will stay in.
right. Okay.
So I don't even think about going to the cinema. It doesn't enter my head that that's something I'm going to do. I'm going to stay in, or I'm
Right.
going to do some gardening, or whatever. But I wouldn't think to go to the cinema, and it's not about doing anything on my own. It's
Okay.
just not there. It's
Huh?
just not what I want to do. And yet people say to me, well, you love going to London. I love going to London. I love it. But there's so many people. I know, but I can actually find spaces in London where there's less people, it's less crowded, it's beautiful, it's got an amazing energy, the trees, the buildings. So I can do a very crowded place my way and not feel depleted. And again, I think it's that knowing, like you've
Mhm.
said, Sarah, as we get older, we just know whether we've got a name for it, a hat
Mhm.
to wear with it, a label to put on it. We just get to a point where it's like, no, I've done all these years where I've tried it the way other people are doing it. Why don't I just listen to me
Mhm.
and work it out how it's going to work best for me? Are you listening, Sami?
I am. I'm just taking in everything that everybody's saying, and I agree with what you were saying, Denise, about like you would just stay in.
Yeah.
And I was having this conversation with myself last night. I went to an evening networking thing that I had to force myself to go to, and then Saturday night there was so the place where I teach skincare making had, like, I suppose it was kind of like their Christmas do. So all the tutors got together because we don't see each other. There's however many tutors and we never meet each other because we're teaching our own courses at different times. And I had to force myself to go to that as well. So that's like 2 nights out of the last 3 that I've been out doing stuff. And now I'm like, I just need to, like, just be inside for a little while. But I know that if I didn't force myself to go out to these things, I would so easily just stay in all the time. And as much as I like my own company and I like being inside and I like being in my home and with my things and doing the things that I enjoy at home, I think if I did that 24/7, it possibly wouldn't be the healthiest of lifestyles, in my opinion, for me. So there is that kind of like you were saying earlier, I suppose, Sarah, putting yourself in those situations which perhaps are not the most comfortable, but actually are going to be better in inverted commas for you in the long run. But yeah, now I need some some alone time. I've done that 2 days recently. That's enough for now.
Yeah, yeah. Is this because we collectively us, that maturity, that hindsight, be able to have the confidence to say yay or nay without criticism, and actually sort of think, yeah, this is my decision, and people, oh, okay. Whereas before, you had to be part of the pack, and you had to do these, or seem to be. But now you actually, that's really, thanks very much for reminding me. No, this is would that be self-care, self-compassion, not physically, mentally having the energy, depending on what else has happened that day, that week, but just having the confidence to say, great invitation, not this time, not going for it. Another time you think, oh yeah, I'm going to go. Yeah, just finding your level.
Yeah, and I think being, like you say, okay with saying no and what might be seen as letting people down. And Denise can probably talk more about this, being her recovering people pleaser. But it's okay to put yourself first, isn't it, Denise?
Yes, it is, Sami. Thank you. Yes. Recovering, I'll never recover. I am what I am, and people pleaser is top of the list. Yes, it is that whole thing of just riding other people's judgments, or what they see as not the polite thing to do or not the correct thing to do. And yeah, just got to an age where I don't care because I know what my mind, my emotions require, and if I get overwhelmed, well, then how am I going to manage my life? And there's just that whole thing of no. I look to live as stress-free a life as I possibly can, or a stressless life. You can never be stress-free because it's how our brains are set up. But a stressless life, and yeah, if a million invitations came through the post right now, I'd probably only do one or two of them. And I honestly couldn't tell you how I would choose that. I'd go through my diary and just see what else I've already got in. And if there's like a blank week, I might put one in there. I'm certainly not going to put like 3 times a day for the whole week. That's not going to happen. It's just not going to happen. And so I'm very comfortable with that now. Whereas when I first started making this life transition, I was very uncomfortable with it. And again, it goes back to being a pleaser. Oh, this person said this, I should do what they say. Then it's like, take a step back. If I was hearing someone else talk like that, what might I say to them? And it's just like, oh yeah, I would say do what works for you. And if you think going there works for you, go. And if you think it doesn't, don't do it. You push the comfort zone a bit, but don't push it so far that you then need a month to recover, because that's not working, is it? And it's just like, no, I'm very, very specific about my diary. And even if I've got some spare time, if I know I've got a lot coming up, I won't fill that spare time with being out there. I will look after myself. And that usually equals being inside my own home. But it's just that maturity, knowing yourself, and then not giving a damn what other people think of you. You can see why the older generation, of which we are now part, Sarah, just seem really belligerent and like, no, don't care, not doing it. It's like, oh, they don't, we won't bend to other people's wishes and wills anymore because we just know it's not worth it. It's not worth the trials and tribulations that we have to deal with for ourselves. Anything else, Sarah, from that first podcast? It feels like we shook your world apart in that first podcast.
It was definitely side. It was because I was driving along and I couldn't stop, and I had to pull in and sort of like collect. Because I've turned it off. It was a podcast. It wasn't though. It was live. It was a recording. I could have turned it off. But, because I was driving. No, it's just really interesting because then I've shared it with people, friends of mine. So you all listen to in New Zealand and in Salford. My friend Joy listens. My friend Emma listens, and Alistair listens as well. So you're getting out there, ladies. So there we go.
Thank you, Sarah.
And there will be a few more. I'll be sending the link of this podcast. Guess what are you going to do when you go to the UK? Well, I'm doing this, and we're going away for that. And I've been asked to join a podcast. Going, well, this is right. Send us the. So to all those friends who are listening, hello.
Absolutely. I did say to you once upon a time, you said, if I come to live with you, would that be all right? And I
And you
was like,
know,
would it? Said, I would put you to work, and here you are. And if there's one thing I know you are good at, it's talking. So I would find you something where you could talk on a regular basis, you know.
well, I always fancied having a show. What was it? On the Sofa with Sarah was a show I wanted to have, and now all these podcasts have taken over. It's really interesting. I was with doing this voluntary work and keeping in touch with people. I post things on Instagram and occasionally do a blog for the organisation. But then I thought, well, could I speak for 1 minute and just do a minute post every day? And a minute's a long time. And I was walking along and describing. It was just a test to say, okay, I'm recording for 1 minute. I set my timer. What can I say? Oh, that lady's just said hello, and that sign says this. And it was like 37 seconds. Thinking, oh my God, it's such a long time. No, I'll sack that idea. I'm not going to talk for every day.
Yeah, it's talking coherently for 1 minute, Sarah, not rambling.
Rambling. Observations. It was going to be my daily observations. It's too hot with the phone and slip out of my hands and things. So, you might get one a week. It's just my thoughts. So that's gone by the by.
Yes, you were going to do On the Sofa with Sarah. Now, here's the thing about that is you're going to have me on the sofa. I was the quiet one who was going to be sat knitting.
Yeah.
Hello. We knew back in the day.
Yeah. Yeah.
The difference between us. We did know. We just we didn't use words to label it.
Yeah.
So yeah, we did know. On the Sofa with Sarah. And then Mel and Sue came along, didn't they? And you're like, they're doing my show.
Yeah. Never say never. I've still got a few years left in me. So yeah, we'll see what my next project might be. Yeah.
So maybe we'll invite you back another time, Sarah, when you're back in the country again. So how long are you going to be away from the UK once you get back?
How long? The placement is 12 months. So this is month 7. So I'll have 5 months to complete when I'm there. So really back in New Zealand would be end of July, August time. And then I'm not sure when I'd be back in the UK again. Who knows what the future is. I'm not plotting any course as yet, Denise, but I'll rock up again. I'll be on the doorstep.
I know.
You're not getting rid of me after this length of time.
Yeah, we have a routine when Sarah comes to the UK. We tend to be first port of call here in Chester, and it's always the same flight from Dubai. The 11:15, it arrives at Manchester Airport, Terminal 1, and we wait until she comes out. There's a lot of people come through Terminal 1. My word. And it's a Sunday morning usually.
Yeah.
And then to get Sarah into our time zone and for her to experience things that she can't get hold of over in Bougainville or New Zealand or wherever in the world she's been, we go to Sainsbury's every time. So there she is, reoriented. Look at everything, still looks the same, Sarah, same grey weather.
But it's choice, you see. It's quite overwhelming sometimes. Sainsbury's. This time it was a little bit, and it wasn't because I was tired. It was like just having all that choice that I don't have. And that sometimes not having choice is really good, but other times it's like, oh, look at all those things. And doing a quick calculation with a tired brain about the prices and the differences. Price of a pineapple. I'm very lucky I can get my pineapples a lot cheaper than you can. So yeah,
make everyone jealous. How much is your pineapple? It's like a 50p or something, isn't it?
Best for about 25p for a pineapple.
25p for a pineapple. Good Lord.
And then we come and we stay awake till 8 o'clock, and then I can go to bed and get back into the time zone. So day 2, it's really nice. It's good to be back, and I've appreciated my time. Nice to meet you, Sami, and have a 3-way conversation on the screen, which was so I could do it from anywhere, Denise. Not to invite me from Bougainville.
Yeah, time differences though, Sarah. You know what I'm like with those, and that's all numbers, isn't it? You have to sort it all out for me because I can't get time differences at all. Just
and that's
like
my first trip to New Zealand. She would be hilarious, Sami. She'd say, so it's Saturday morning with you, and it's Friday. Oh, I can't do it. I can't think that you're on Saturday. I'm on Friday. We just thought, move any calendars and things, or saying,
true story.
or I'd be there. I'd have to try and dress in clothes that were similar to what she was wearing. If I had my dressing gown on, that'd freak her out. What do you mean you just up?
Just the weirdest thing. Why is it nighttime with you when it's 7 o'clock in the morning with me? Why? It's just,
Yeah.
I know Pete had a conversation with you about you've gained a day coming here, and I'm like, I still don't get that. How does that happen? I
Yeah.
still don't get that. I know it is. I know it's a thing. And
It's
I know
weird.
I read Around the World in 80 Days. I know what
Yeah.
Phileas Fogg did,
Yeah.
but I don't get it. There's something like a bit of information nobody's ever given me that's not switched something on in my brain. One day, maybe.
I just had a thought about looking at people, and I shouldn't have just said I don't like labels, but I'm more aware of, makes me more aware of people who might not be as alive and aware, as outgoing as me. And I think I think with maturity, I do that subconsciously when you're especially being and joined a new team. It's just like, who are these people? And it's not, again, like I said, their experience, but who are they? And they're, okay, yeah, I'll spend more time over here, or I'll spend more time over in this direction. So
yeah, I think one way of looking at it is the difference between judging someone for being quiet, or discerning that that's what they are, and that they need a slightly different input. From you. And with that change of like the lens that you're looking at them through, then you'll open something up for them as well as yourself. Sami, have you got any more questions for Sarah? Remember, she's known me a long time. What do you want to know? No, don't go there. No.
Put Denise on mute, she'd be jumping up and down going,
well, I was just wondering, with you saying about like being able to do these conversations from anywhere, when you're in Bougainville, do you have like this is going to sound like proper like first world like judgment of other countries, but like internet and all of that, does that work well?
Well, it's one of the things that as the access and the regularity of it has surprised me. I went out being prepared for not a good connection, but it has been really good. Occasionally, if I'm doing a video call, it might freeze, but I can always do audio on WhatsApp. And because of the remoteness of the location and me being the only volunteer there, it's been something that's kept me safe and well to have that connection. And whether that be introvert or extrovert, I don't think about it. It's just been having to have a connection because there are so many other things I had to adjust to that were new in terms of, say, personal safety or just getting used to the environment, the climate, access to power, food, etc., taking it on. But then being able to know that somebody could contact me and even just get a message that there is somebody else out there, I can contact somebody should I need to. Saying that, I have got other means, like I do have a satellite phone and I do have a personal location beacon should I be in. I'm not alone really, but the availability in the modern world is 24/7. I did expect it to be not as good, but it is developing. And that's weird when I'm working in the internet's good, but I'm working in a clinical health setting that lacks so much. So you have those real polarizations of things. Everybody's got a mobile phone, but have they got a pen to do the job? It's those, what's the word I'm looking for? Extremes, those extremes. So, but back to your question, yes, I'm very pleased to have the access. I could, if I had less, I can still have music to listen to, and I've got kindly Chris gave me a hard drive with lots of films on. I've taken up doing sketching, albeit badly, but it's just something new to test my brain and enjoy, and use watercolors and do lots of puzzles and play cards and things, and have quite a lot of time on my own. But having the internet on top of that has been beneficial because you can click on and have a video call with family or friends, look stuff up on the internet as well. So it's interesting that they do have the access to it and yet have so many shortfalls in other ways, but other days. You're more than welcome to come and visit. It does take a little while to get there, but welcome to visit.
It's
Well,
hours away. Hours.
when Denise was saying about meeting you at the airport and it's the flight from Dubai, I'm like, oh my God, yeah, because you couldn't just come straight from Bougainville, could you? And just that, I'm like, oh wow, that's just exhausting. Just thinking about it.
There's a woman on the plane, and she got on, and she was saying she had spent a long time in the airport. She'd been on a cruise, and she was really tired. And she said, "What about you?" I said, "Well, I actually started this journey a week of Wednesday ago. You know, I've been what?" I said, "Well, it took me 2 days to travel up the island, and then 3 flights to New Zealand, then 3 flights to get here." And she just went, "I'm not complaining about being stuck in the airport." That's how it is. You can get there quicker, but the reason why it took so long is just it gave me chance to reacclimatise, but also just in case there's any delays, then there wouldn't be any increased stress. I just had to get from A to B constantly. It didn't matter if I got to B. I didn't have to jump on another plane. I had a night, and then we could start again. That makes sense. So it looked like it was going to take me a long time to get to New Zealand, but I really appreciated getting to a hotel and having crisp white sheets and a shower and fluffy white towels.
We had that experience. We went on a retreat and stayed in one of those pods in the forest, and it had like a compost toilet and stuff. And we were just excited after, I think it hadn't even been 2 days, and we were excited to go to a cafe and there was a tap. So I can't imagine that when you get, and you've got like those crisp white sheets. And
yeah, when we went to the loo, we came out and went, we washed our hands in hot water. It's crazy. That was 2 days, literally. I know. I think it's listening to you talk about how the power goes off, Sarah, and you have to have the generator on, and you've got a twin tub washing machine, and things like that, and you're cooking on gas, but it's from a bottle. It's not piped in. There is so much we take for granted.
It is, yeah, very much so. Yeah, it's quite a simple life, but it's good in some respects, and it just every time I do be able to switch the light on, think town power, I just have a moment and think, okay, I'll appreciate this. What do I need to do? Why is this an advantage? I'm never without power. I can have a generator, but having a generator means it's a bit noisier, and the petrol might run out. So there's those little bits of anxiety creeping. But I knew all this before I left. Being a volunteer, you're given lots of information about your placement. And it's what it is. But it does make you grateful for things like hot running water and the fact that I'm aware I've got lights on. I've got lights on. I turn them off just in case the power goes off, but it's going to go off. And then I was a couple of weeks ago, a friend on Facebook, Susan, wrote, "We've had a power cut. We're running around looking for candles." I thought, I can't reply to that post. And then a bit later, it was only off for 30 minutes, and she commented herself, and I'm going to see her in a couple of weeks next weekend. I'll raise it with her for half an hour. But it's so unusual in the Western world that there is a power cut. But we remember the strikes, Denise, the miners' strikes. Well, but you knew when the power was going to be off. They would say it's Tuesday and Thursday nights between a certain time, and blackouts. But in Bougainville, sometimes you just don't know. You've got it, and then it's off. Oh, power's gone off. Okay. First thing to do is charge your phone up, because it's your means of communication. So you used to adjust those things. So I talk a lot to myself. Talk out loud. You'll be pleased to hear, Denise.
Oh, I know you talk out loud.
Oh, yeah. I was going to ask you, do I really talk in my sleep?
Yes.
I was so surprised. That was something. Must ask yourself. Yeah, okay. Constantly on the go. Okay.
It's fine. I think we all probably do think aspects of that at times, especially if you're dreaming and things like that. But yeah, conversations, Sarah, while you're asleep. Very funny.
Well, my younger brother has always talked in his sleep, and he's the more extroverted.
Right.
And my partner talks in his sleep, and he's more extroverted. So maybe it is an extrovert thing. They just keep talking.
Just you. Anything else, Sami? Anything else you want to know?
Well, I feel like this is a conversation that we could have for hours and hours. I think that might be a good
junction.
pause. Yes.
Okay.
It's been really interesting because it actually has. It's been nice to be able to think, just open up and look at things slightly differently. Again, we refer to lenses, and I think that's really appropriate that we do. But I do, it's been a good reflection of the topic. So yeah, like when Denise messaged and she said, "I spoke to Sami. There's an invitation, and we'd like to invite our podcast." And I wrote back, "Let me think about it." Yes, straight away. Me refuse.
Like you have to think about it when you can
That
just
was
talk.
Yeah. Like I said, when I've said to people in the past, I was thinking about joining a silent order. There's just much here. And I think I'm going to do it. I'm going to go on a silent retreat just to prove to people that I can be quiet. Watch the space. Tell you all about it.
Yay! Well, take me with you. I'll show you how it's done.
Oh, hold you to that.
Challenge. I've thrown the gauntlet down.
Yeah, okay. Hold you to it.
Thank you for being here, Sarah. Really appreciate it. And we'll be back with another podcast in a couple of weeks' time. Thank you for listening, everyone. Bye for now.
Bye-bye.
Bye.